Welcome back. I am walking on the north side of our property. This originally was the front entrance to the property when Chemung Street was yet a dirt road and when horses and carriages were in use. We are not using this as our main entrance to the home since there is no parking on this street. This area is filled with hosta, spiderwort, and daisies, and the lone fragrant stargazer lily that has already bloomed this year. Some years it is the end of July that is in full bloom. This is a picture from July of 2019. I had planted one on each side, but only this one remains. Between the cracks of these large stone slabs leading to the front of the house are ferns. They grow here every year in this particular space, and I have on several unsuccessful attempts tried to dig them out and transplant them elsewhere on the property. But I can't get them by the roots, so other years I just weeded them out. But this year, since we have closed off this area, it is more like a patio area now, and I am going to let them grow here and see how they do. I have not been able to identify the broader leaf type of fern. And yes, more Queen Anne's lace, which planted itself. Back in 2010, when we purchased this property, there was a maple tree in this area, which the village needed to trim every so often for the power lines. So it gave it an odd shape. And each year the tree was slowly dying, so we ended up taking it down, which was okay, so that we could get the lift through this area anyways, to work on the restoration and painting of the home. Rows of Sharon's, celandine, which plants itself, and arbor vitae, along the north side of our property. We have named the main house Enchanting East Empress. In this yard, prior to 1879, and as early as 1850, stood a two-story octagon home. The octagon home was moved down to the site of our bungalow in 1879. This is the northwest corner of our property and our upper driveway. I am looking up at a clump of linden trees. I read that old Slavic mythology, the linden was considered a sacred tree, and in Poland many villages called it the Holy Lime. The linden tree is said to be a symbol of love, fertility, prosperity, fidelity, friendship, peace, justice, altruism, and good luck. The white fence is our neighbor's fence to the west of us. Along our side of this fence, depending on the time of year, can be seen lilies, tulips, spotted dead nettle, columbine, and buttercup. Lilies, rose of Sharon, magnolia bush, and quince under the linden trees. The flowers are beautiful in the early spring. These quince bushes do get a fruit that look kind of like a crabapple or a pear. I keep these trimmed to about this height, which takes 2 to 3 trimmings from spring to fall. They have multiplied since we purchased the property, and new shoots pop up frequently, which I will continue to take some and spread around the property. Normally, the quince fruit should turn yellow when ripe, but ours don't make it past the green stage. It is a very hard fruit. We did taste one and it wasn't good raw. If we ever get any that turn yellow, I will try them cooked, which I read are real tasty. Long ago, jams and jellies were made from the quince. And here is a baby European copper beech tree which planted itself. There is also vinca, or better known as periwinkle or myrtle, in this area. This is native to Central and Southern Europe. The quince here may be a Japanese quince. This also is a nice place to sit and take a break from the yard and garden work. I just added these stepping stones to this area, which were given to me by my sister. Next to the west porch is one of those 3 trees that I talked about in part 1, which I have not been able to identify, that planted themselves on our property. They are beautiful in the spring with their white flowers. They are a fast-growing tree. Next to the porch was yucca, a plant given to us by a friend. The flowering stem could be 4 to 6 feet tall. It doesn't flower every year. It seems to flower every other year for us. Unfortunately, we had to move this last year to the terraced hillside so that we could work on the porch in this area. And it didn't flower this year, and I sure hope it lives. A magnolia bush. In the area behind the fountain and magnolia bush, depending on the time of year, can be seen lilies, celandine, poppies, crocuses, and rows of Sharons. And lots of milkweed behind the fountain area. This garden takes the place of a maple tree stump. The maple tree had died and was taken down long before we purchased the property. This garden contains greater celandine, which again plants itself here and all around the property. Interesting thing about the celandine is that it will bloom in the early spring, die off, and grow new to bloom again. And then most years it will do the same thing a third time. When I weed out the plant after it blooms and starts to die off, it leaves an orangish-colored sap on me and my clothes. There is never a lack of this plant on this property. Celandine was introduced from Europe into North America as an herbal plant. It is no longer used for that purpose. This garden also contains an azalea and a white bleeding heart, which both came from my sister, who no longer wanted them. Lilies and milkweed. Our temporary stockpile of stone for our ongoing driveway, sidewalk, and other projects. This is one of 3 walnut trees on the property, and some years we can fill the wheelbarrow 3 times. the Virginia creeper, and thus ends part 3 of a tour of Zehr Estate's grounds. Look for part 4.